guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing yet another movie review for you all. This movie is a crime drama from Ukraine, Ukrainian language English subs, released in the year 2021, directed by Oleg Sentsov, and this film is called Rhino. So Rhino is set in 1990s Ukraine. You have a man named Rhino, nicknamed Rhino because he's built like a rhinoceros and he's ferocious, and he's always known the way of violence. So when he was young, he used to witness his alcoholic father beating his mother. He also used to be on the receiving end of his father's violence, and through his years, he's always known to get what he wants, he's going to have to use force. And so now he's a young adult and he's got the attention of these Ukrainian mobsters. So they see him as an asset because of his intimidating physique and also his intimidating nature. And now he's quickly rising through the ranks of the Ukrainian underworld until he gets to the top. He's got the women, he's got the power, he's got the money, everything that he's always wanted. But unfortunately, there's one thing that is lacking, and that is love. And so he starts to second guess his life, and he starts to believe that maybe it's time to take a different path. But unfortunately, he may have passed the point of no return, and whether or not he gets the redemption he so sorely wants is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Rhino. I had a lot of anticipation coming into this movie, but very limited excitement based on the fact that my experience with Ukrainian cinema has been very limited. In fact, it's only been 2 films. The Tribe, which is a very inventive movie that I really liked. I reviewed that movie quite a long time ago, so if you want to see details about that film, please feel free to check it out. And also Sergei Losnitsa's Donbass, which was equally as riveting, and again, I've reviewed that film, so if you want details about that movie, please check out that review. So those 2 movies have been very impressive, but it's not quite enough to know exactly what track Ukrainian cinema is on. And so coming into Rhino, it's another opportunity to see another Ukrainian film, and I was hoping to add it to those movies that have really, really impressed me. So I saw the trailer. I really like foreign gangster films, and so it was a recipe for success. And so having fingers crossed that it was going to be a great film, after watching Rhino, I will say that although it was okay, there was one element to this movie that was an absolute necessity that was lacking. And that's something I'll go into a little bit later, but what I really liked about Rhino was that sense of psychological torment as well as the physical torment. This is a world where it was very harsh and unforgiving, and unfortunately an honest way of living was very limited. In fact, you had more opportunities if you were being destructive. And so this is the way of the world sometimes. Sometimes people are forced into violence, whether it's their upbringing or the fact that they don't have any other opportunities. And so if your hands are tied and you're forced into this really dark world, this is the certain sense of tragedy that Rhino has about it. This is the man that could have been completely different if he was raised in a better environment. But again, that environment is because of the limited opportunities throughout his entire life. His alcoholic father, his mother, they didn't have a lot to play with, and so unfortunately that way of violence was the way that they lived. And that destructive nature, it completely took out all innocence in each and every character. And so Rhino has that certain sense of sympathetic quality because he doesn't know any other way. There is a life out there that's a lot better, but unfortunately it's completely oblivious to him. And so he wants everything that's materialistic. He doesn't want the things that everyone else wants as far as love and connection. He wants money, power, violence, women. Everything that is a material instead of something that is inside, making you feel complete as a human being. So it's a character study of a very torn up individual, and when he realizes the things that he's missing, this is where the tragedy strikes, because he's already passed the point of no return. He's already inflicted so much violence upon people where he starts to realize, okay, I could have been a better person. And so this is the power of the world that this movie creates, and I thought that world is intensified through the very bleak visuals. This is a very harsh and unforgiving era of Ukrainian history, and it's told in a very vivid way as far as the lack of vibrancy just makes it very cold. You feel as though you need to wear a jumper watching this movie because it's cold on a visual sense, but also it's very cold on that psychological character study. Each and every character feel as though they have no decency to them, but again, they are a product of their environment. The environment is shaping these people and doing things that they think is normal, but on the outside, for the outsider looking in, you see it as repulsive, but then it gives that repulsive sort of nature a reason as to why it exists. And it exists because these people don't know any other way. So it's a gangster film that doesn't glorify the gangster way of life. It's something that I thought was really, really well done. It's not a Martin Scorsese film where it shows gangster life in a very vibrant sort of life. This is a movie that was very cold, harsh and unforgiving, and just had a complete sense of hopelessness to it. And so I really like the first quarter of this movie. This is a movie that doesn't go for 2 hours, and so it doesn't have enough time to really tell you a detailed upbringing of this character, which is unfortunately also a negative I have of it, which is something, again, I'll go into a little bit later. But the first quarter of this movie, there's a certain way that it tells the time lapse of the childhood that I thought was really creative. I have to be very careful not to give anything away, but I thought that was really well done. Hadn't seen that before, and that really set the movie up for something that it doesn't really eventuate into, and that's, again, something I don't want to give away. But the first quarter of this movie is told in a very creative way, but it really wants to tell the story from Rhino's young adulthood. And so the movie really wants to kick off there, but it has to give you an insight as to why Rhino is the man that he is. And to tell it in such a quick way in the start of the film, I thought was actually quite decent. But then again, it does have issues to that. And the biggest issue is the fact that this movie is very superficial. I never felt as though there was a certain level of humanity into any of these characters. And so it's a world that I couldn't really access. This is an underworld that I'm completely oblivious to. And so I never really felt as though I could come into this world and actually experience it with someone. And so Rhino, the director, wants you to go on Rhino's journey, but unfortunately he's doing really repulsive things, and I never really felt as though I knew Rhino, and I never felt as though I knew anyone else. And so there's a certain sense of superficiality to this film that creates a certain sense of boredom. This is such a foreign world, why should I care about Rhino? And unfortunately you just don't really feel that sense of connection. And there's also a lot of elements to this movie that felt very rushed. I felt as though it had a really grand idea, but not enough time to really detail that idea in a way that I thought was satisfactory. And so that was ultimately the biggest issue with the film. It just didn't have enough character development to the film to make me really care about what was going on. And so that superficial quality and the emotional depth of a puddle really gets in the way of enjoying the film as much as I really wanted to. I thought as though if this was a bit longer, it could have just delved out a little bit more in Rhino's life. But unfortunately, as I said, the fact that it is definitely skimmed over and it's not really concentrated on does create that certain sense of emptiness. And yes, the whole point of the film was that certain sense of emptiness, but for me to really care, I just needed a little bit more of a three-dimensional approach to these characters. And so that was ultimately the biggest issue I had with the movie. But it's certainly not the worst gangster film out there, but I was hoping that it could have been a little bit better. So overall for Rhino, going to give this one 2.5 stars. Visually very good, psychologically very good, but unfortunately as far as emotion is concerned, not quite there. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.